The choice of a tree to use as the inspiration for the Middle Fork project was not so much one based on a formally compelling, unusual shaped tree. It was much more looking at a tree that is relatively similar to the trees around it, so that we could then pay particularly close attention to all the details of that tree and find the small things that made it compelling and interesting rather than some sweeping romantic vision. Casting the tree took a lot of effort. There was the series of long ascents on ropes that arborists had rigged up for us, and bucket loads of plaster and water and layer upon layer of applying plaster over a protective layer of aluminum. But that process, while it was drawn out for almost 2 weeks, was very rewarding because what it allowed for was an opportunity to become so kind of intimately engaged with the details of the tree, finding ways in which a branch might take a sudden bend in a way that wouldn't have intuitively made sense. So you'd sort of lose sense of yourself and become so engaged in what this thing was that it made all of the work of getting up and down very much worthwhile. Once we'd completely cast the tree and gone through the process of very carefully lowering them on a system of pulleys, we then had to reassemble all of those casts back in the studio. Then began the process of actually creating the sculpture, which is the finished piece. Because of the scope and the scale of the project, this process involved hundreds of people. What was important to me is that as somebody comes in to volunteer their time and work for a few hours on the project, that they get some sort of sense that we had while we were casting that tree of what that surface was like and why it's a compelling thing. So each person that contributed their time would choose specific stratas of blocks and shape them slightly in response to that section of the cast of the tree. And I think that it really actually came through to people, that people would lose track of where they were because of the slow process and how little an area you might accomplish in a couple of hours. Refining the completed pieces was an important step because what this did was offset all of the irregularity from so many different people's perspectives with a relatively homogenizing effect. And what that does, I think, for the piece is allow people to see greater patterns throughout the surface. It allows you to see the veins that move horizontally across the piece as well as the stippling light in a kind of repetitive pattern. After the piece has been completed and exhibited over a period of 2 years, we're going to transport the sculpture back to the base of the tree where it was cast and lay it on the forest floor. And the idea behind that is to allow it to gradually moss over and decay and eventually disintegrate into the ground. I'm much more interested in this than the idea of trying to preserve the sculpture. I think that by witnessing this gradual decay, there's going to be a sense of discovery. I think we're going to find something that we might not have ever anticipated, something completely unexpected.